Hi, I'm Don. Last video we painted this creature caster miniature. And we talked about how to layer over speed paints. We did a ton of thin glazes and fat glazes, basically what I call glaze layering with this miniature. However, for today's video, we will not do any glazing at all. Today, we will do a ton of sketch layering or just basic layering via a very sketchy process or method, and we turn these miniatures into this. Also today, we're painting 5 miniatures in one sitting so that you could see that the process is kinda fast. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my studio. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. And of course, this channel won't be possible without the support of my patrons. This Chaos Space Marines is part of a bigger commission, and it's part of this Abaddon army. You should check out my other video with this Abaddon painting. I'll put the link on top and maybe below in the description. So basically, I had to paint this miniatures, this unit of Chaos Space Marines into good enough painting so that it matches Abaddon. However, obviously I painted Abaddon for a couple of days, and we can't spend a couple of days per miniature of this unit. That means I'll be painting this unit for 10 days, and that's too slow. Also, watch until the end of the video for our tip time. There's a couple of problems, major problems, in the painting of these miniatures. One is that this is the second batch of these Chaos Space Marines. When the box of Chaos Space Marines or the box of Chaos Army arrive here, I let my daughter Sam do the assembly, and she thought and I thought that there are only 5 Chaos Space Marines. And then when I shipped to my client to the UK, he said that there are supposedly 10. So this is the second batch. So that is the main problem. I have to match this, not really main problem, but one of the problems. So I have to match this painting with the first batch. But wait, let's blend with medium. The medium, SpeedPaint medium, is super great. I use it to blend the edges of here. You can see the blending of the skin towards the bone parts. So I don't want to paint the bone parts with the skin color. So I kind of blended the edges with medium. You could use water, but the medium is thicker. Thus, I feel I had more control. And if you're a long-time subscriber, you know that I love mediums. Now, the second problem is that I started painting these models the first day when I got the SpeedPaints. And I'm not used to painting with SpeedPaints during that time. So basically, if it's your first time, the lighter colors of SpeedPaints are very easy to use. Like this one, Pallid Bone, it flows perfectly on the model, and then after drying, it looks super perfect. Although I would admit that you might want a couple of passes of the lighter colors like this one if you want a darker base color. The darker SpeedPaints color though are kinda scary to use for if you're using it for the first time. Like for example, the skin, the pink alchemy, and grim black, it's kinda you're kinda scared to paint it in one go. But eventually, I learned after more than a couple of weeks that you just let the SpeedPaints do its job. There will be a few times like this one here. The green black laid down really nicely. It has never been this easy to paint black armor. However, in some areas of the black armor, you might want it to be darker. So you might want to do a second pass. I would recommend that you use SpeedPaints 2.0 so that there will be no reactivation. Or you paint like after overnight when you give it a quick matte varnish, and then you could do some glazes with SpeedPaints 1.0 over the darker areas. But basically, after painting with SpeedPaints for more than a couple of weeks, I learned to just let the SpeedPaints like settle on the recesses and basically do its job, and you basically just trust the process. I always say this even with my really old videos, miniature painting videos, is that it doesn't really matter how you paint the base colors. You could paint with the airbrush, you could paint with normal paints, you could paint with foundation colors like darker sepia underpainting, purple underpainting, or dark sea blue, and then you layer up from those dark colors, but it doesn't really matter. The most important part of the base color or the base painting is that you keep it as clean as you can. But don't be too meticulous about it or you'll slow down tremendously. So no matter how it looks after the base painting, that doesn't matter because you'll be layering on top of it, especially if you're aiming for a display-ish level standard or definitely more than tabletop standard. Needless to say, you really need to get these speed paints. Like, they speed up your painting so much and it's so easy to like level up the painting later, as you'll see in the video. Now here you could see I'll be using Retributor armor. This is one of those gold paints that has really good coverage. Since the trims, the gold trims, the armor trims are very thin, some areas are really small, I had to just paint it green black. And then I had to do a bit of trim painting with Retributor armor. So I'm kinda sad that I can't use my SpeedPaints metallics here. But then again, this was pretty quick, but to be honest, this is the most time-consuming part of this painting project. The painting of the trims took me more than a couple of hours, but it turned out okay. Now let's talk about layering, or in this case or in this video, I kinda like to call it sketch layering. I'm using cuttlefish colors here, but I'm not using it to glaze over or to do glaze layering over the miniature. I'm just basically doing like basic layering. I'm just mixing or thinning down the paints, the cuttlefish colors, with like roughly around 3 parts paint and 1 part Merlin's medium. There are 2 reasons why I had to use cuttlefish for the layering or the painting of the skin and other parts of the model. One, it should match the first batch of Chaos Space Marines that I shipped to my client already. Another one is that since I'm not used to painting with speed paints when I started this project, the skin is looking too pink. Like, it's like super pink, so I had to paint a lot of layers of flesh or skin tone so that, again, I should match the first batch and also to like alter the skin color because it's looking too pink as of now. I hate the word beginner, so I'll use learner. So the problem with learners when they're doing layering is that they're painting each section or parts of the model like they're painting maps. So I'm sorry to be harsh, but I see a lot of painting, but that's okay if you're happy with your painting already because you're more focused on the gaming part of the hobby. But if you're trying to elevate your painting, don't paint layers of paints like they look like maps wherein you have a bigger area of the darker color, a smaller map looking area of a lighter color, and a smaller like round area of the lightest color. It basically looks like cell shading, and if you don't glaze on top of that, it will look unfinished. So if you hate glazing, like the thumbnail of this video, or you don't even want to do glaze layering, or you're like in a hurry like this one, I don't want to spend too much time with the painting of this unit, you just have to paint along the surface of the model. Let me explain. So basically, if it's round, you could see in the video right now that all of my paint strokes is just basic layering, but I'm painting along the surface of the model. If it's rounded and if it's like you have muscle areas that should be hit by highlights, I'm painting each section like it's like a light hitting the model. So don't paint in maps or like areas that you just want to paint with solid colors. You should like, if you can, you could cross hatch or even stipple, but basically you should paint along the surface of the model, the shape of the model. Your paint strokes should basically like match or complement the shape of the model. So other than conforming, like making sure that your paint strokes matches the shape of the model you're painting, make sure that you paint with fine strokes. It doesn't need to be stippling or cross-hatching as long as your strokes gets finer and finer as you move to the lighter colors. Your sketching should be faster and actually easier as you move along or as you layer up to the lighter colors, simply because you're painting smaller areas and you're painting less and less areas as you move up to your lighter colors. So the most time-consuming part of the painting or the layering on top of the speed paints is the first color and the second color. In this case, the most time-consuming part is the sketching of the reddish skin and the normal skin color. But as you move on, you could see in the video, as you move on to the lighter highlights, you're basically just painting less areas and you're painting the top areas only, making sure that you create volume and a very nice sense of volumetric lighting. So now it's a matter of just doing this sketch layering or sketching of lighter colors on top of the base colors. Here you could see I kinda shot like a few videos of the painting of the skeletons. It's just painting less and less areas as the lighter colors, as you paint the lighter colors. So it gets faster, especially after you paint the skin, because the skin is the most important part. Now, before I reveal a ton of thanks to all my patrons, because without my patrons, this channel won't be possible. Now we are finished. You could see that our painting is a bit too sketchy. Well, not too sketchy, but sketchy because we made sure that we painted this unit of Chaos Space Marines faster than how we painted Abaddon. So there is zero glaze layering, zero glazes, and zero blending. But overall, it looks pretty nice, I think. And it should match, like, this unit should match Abaddon pretty well. So unlike the last video that we did, wherein we did a lot of glaze layering, thin glazes, and fat glazes, with this one, you saw that we did zero glazes. And it came out pretty nice. But the key factors in doing good sketch layering, as I said earlier, is that you shouldn't really focus on the colors you're using. You just focus on making sure that you create some sort of lighting when you're painting in this manner. Also, there is very nice contrast here because I painted a lot of highlights, but basically I did this to match Abaddon. Now it's time for tip time. So we'll summarize the video and I'll share some actual tips on layering on top of SpeedPaints. I must admit that this video will be so outdated once the Warpaints fanatic comes out, because their triad system, the layering will be so easy because of the 6-color triad system. But anyways, I'll give you tips on how to do good layering on top of SpeedPaints without this Warpaints fanatic. One, if you're sketching or sketch layering on top of SpeedPaints, you should select a good color for your base color. And then once you have a good base color, it's a matter of just painting along the surface of the model. You paint along the shape of the model so that your paint strokes will complement the model itself. Second, as always, you should identify your light source. For me, it's always top left of the model or my top right. And you should focus on painting more and more highlights on those areas. Next is to paint with really fine strokes. So since we did not do any glaze layering, we did not even do fat or thin glazes, and we did not even do proper layering wherein you mix colors, mix a lot of colors so that you match each of the colors that you layer on top of each other, we had to do fine strokes. So sketching or layering with very fine strokes will always yield you great results. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video and watch these other videos.